break. We had to take a little break early because the YouTube live stream was off, so that is on. We still have to finish agenda item number 5, which is the discussion of state board legislative priorities for 2021. I'm going to turn it back over to Jim Porter, and he's going to lead us through the last few things. Jim?
Yeah, I think Dina had a comment about the third bullet point that she wanted to make.
Okay, Dina, go ahead, please.
Well, I just thought that to clarify what we're actually referencing there, that we're talking specifically about vouchers and tax credits.
Okay, so we've already had the discussion about that. I want to move to the last one is just a statement that we need to be aware, and others need to be aware, that there are additional costs that have come, and then there's some examples there. So it's really not a legislative priority. It's just a statement that we want, that I think is important to say, that for those people who think, well, you didn't have school, so you didn't have any cost. Well, there were in fact additional cost, and I just think that this is saying that the board recognizes that happened. We're not saying to do anything about it. We're not requesting more money. We're just saying that whenever it comes to looking at plans for the future, that these things need to be considered.
They had their ongoing costs, but then there were additional costs. Is that what you're referring to, Jim?
That's what we're talking about.
Okay. All right. Do you want to take us through some voting here?
I think that this is what I'm going to recommend, and I'm willing to make the first motion, which would be to approve the legislative priorities above other measures, other issues to be considered in one vote, and then vote on bullet point 2, 3, and 4 separately under other issues to be considered. So I'm going to recommend, I'm getting ready to make the motion that we approve as our legislative priorities, despite the fact that there are a couple of concerns that have been noted and will be noted for that first page and a quarter, and then the other two will be separate. So, Madam Chair, I move that the legislative priorities of the State Board of Education be adopted, including everything on our list of draft legislative priorities above the line, other issues to be considered.
Okay, so this does not include the last 2 items. Board members will vote on those separately. This is the first group, which we went over 4 items at a time. So yeah. Jim Porter made the motion to approve those. Dina Horst, second. Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, all opposed? Okay, that's a 9-1. Thank you very much. Okay, Jim, if you would go to on the part where it says other issues to be considered, it's bullet point 3 on that, and Randy's pulling that up, which reads, opposes efforts to divert funds from public schools to non-public educational options. Okay, Jim?
And
Dina.
I'm going to make the motion to add to our list of legislative priorities to oppose efforts to divert funds from public schools to non-public educational options. And that is intended to mean vouchers and tax credits.
Okay, so we have a motion for that third bullet point there. Do we have a second? Okay, Ann Mah, further discussion. Steve Roberts?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have an interview tomorrow for a science teaching position here in Overland Park.
Okay, what does this have to do with this agenda item?
Well, stay tuned. It's a private, not-for-profit school. So their mission statement, I'm looking at their website right now on my phone. I'm not going to say the name of the school. I just don't think that's appropriate. But blank School of Overland Park works with students and their families to provide a unique learning environment that maximizes individual success. We are a private, nonprofit school accredited by the state of Kansas and by Cognia. In our full-day program, we provide individualized instruction for students in grades 4 through 12. I think schools like this are deserving of some public support. Non-public, public, it's a debate. I think we have to move the needle. I think this is part of moving the needle.
Okay, other
Thank you.
comments or questions? Janet Wall?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to discuss this because I totally support the motion. First of all, your parochial and private schools, they do not have to follow the same rules and regulations that public schools have to follow. So therefore, they do not have to accept every student that wants to participate. In fact, I can tell you a personal issue that I had with a friend of mine. I had a friend of mine contact me several years ago. Her son was attending a parochial school. He had been dismissed from school, I guess expelled or however you want to call it. And she called me to see what I could do because she didn't think they should have that authority to do that. And I said, yes, they do. They have that authority. They do. They have the right to do that because they are private. And anyway, I told her she was going to have to probably enroll him in a public school because we have the obligation to educate every single student. And then another issue that I have with this, and I think it's great if people can afford to send their children to a private and parochial school, they prefer that. More power to them. I have no problem. But what about the parents in the low socioeconomic areas? And if we, let's say, give them a voucher to attend a private school or a parochial school, they don't provide transportation to those schools. So therefore, our parents couldn't send them to those schools because they don't provide transportation. So to me, they don't have to follow all the rules we do. They get excused from those because they are private. And I have no problem with that, but I don't believe we should use public funds to help parochial and private schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben Jones?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am going to be in support of this motion. I have a lot of private schools, most of them not accredited through the state of Kansas. And I do have some parochial schools that do receive public money, title funds, that flow through them. So some private schools do get some public money for certain services, but I support the motion. I always remind my private schools, wherever government money goes, so do the bureaucracy and the public openness that goes along with it, and the amount of work that our public schools have to do to provide that transparency to the public that private schools do not, and the amount of book and work that they have to do in receiving government money. So it's protecting them as well, to allowing them the flexibility and freedom to operate through that. So I will be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Okay, let's take a vote. The vote was to support this item 3, which is opposed as part of the legislative agenda, which opposes efforts to divert funds from public schools to non-public educational options. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Opposed? Okay, that's 8-2. Peggy, do you get who's opposed? Michelle and Steve? Okay, all right. Okay, the next item is item number 4 on the other issues to be concerned part of the legislative agenda, which, as Mr. Porter said, is not necessarily anything requesting new money. It's basically a statement. Jim, do you want to
Yes,
address anything else there?
I move that we add the statement that we recognize that COVID-19 has created additional financial burdens on school districts. Some examples are additional professional development to prepare staff for remote learn and hybrid learning, provide additional space for social distancing, additional cost of increased building sanitation, PPE, additional staff requirements when schools are in multiple settings, etc. I move that be included in the
Okay, so
legislation.
we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, Ben Jones. Michelle, you put a question in the chat. I believe that applies to this one, so I will read that. And I'm going to ask Randy to address this. Where did districts save money from not being in full session? This is the one I assume goes with this point. Okay, all right, Randy.
I would lean on Craig a little bit because I know he's done a little bit of that work. I don't believe that they've saved any money because staff's personnel's been employed. There'd be some savings in transportation. Craig, go ahead because you know more about this area than I do.
That's the primary area, and that even is obviously going to vary from district to district. As Randy said, a lot of districts the majority of the districts are in person, so they're still running transportation fleet. The exception would have been last spring when every district was out. There was some savings in fuel at that time, but the majority of district expenditures are for salaries, and you probably remember they were required to pay all employees last spring. So the savings were somewhat minimal, for lack of a better word. And there, as you already discussed, there were other expenses due to COVID-19 that in most cases offset the savings.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I might again add, I mentioned this yesterday, because I know you kind of view the schools from where you live or where you represent. Somewhere when Craig's staff ran the survey at the end of October, 84 to 89% of public-private schools were in session. So now that doesn't mean that Wichita, for example, Madam Chair, may not have been in session, but the vast majority of school districts were in session when we ran that survey. So their cost would have been the same as any other year, plus additional costs because of ventilation, sanitation, those type of things.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Opposed? Okay, that's 8-2 with Michelle and Steve voting against. Okay, Jim and Dina, thank you very much. Don't know who the legislative liaisons will be next year. You guys will decide that in January. So we appreciate your efforts and appreciate having some guidance toward this effort as we move forward. Anne, you have an additional concern.
Yeah, I had an additional concern, and it really became moved kind of to the top of the list based on the vote we made yesterday. But now that we know vaccines are going to be available and we're encouraging more schools to open up, I think we should have an additional item that we address the legislature if necessary, but the governor for sure, to move teachers higher up on the list of people who are going to be getting those vaccines as essential and frontline workers, because right now they're way down on the list.
Jim?
Well, I would, that's a valid point. I think, but I would not limit it to teachers.
No, but I think that's, well, school personnel. I mean, we've got bus drivers, food service workers, and all of them, and they're all essential, I think. But I think we should press that school workers be moved higher up on the list of people getting the first vaccines.
You know, as we move into, you know, right now we're beginning to see the Thanksgiving spike. Right after Christmas, we'll see the Christmas spike. And we want schools in session. I mean, we do. I can't see any member here on here that I would say, no, we want to keep kids at home. We don't. We want schools in session. We want them in schools in session safely. If this is something can assist in that, I am fully supportive of that. Andy, you want to make a motion, or Jim Porter?
Let me have a question.
Yes.
Who is responsible for that? I mean, who has the responsibility?
I think the governor and KDHE made that list. So I think we would address the governor and KDHE to reassess where school personnel are on the list of vaccine priorities.
So
Yeah,
You get all that?
in that case, could this be a separate motion and not part of the legislative agenda, but a direct communication with the governor and the Department of Health and Environment?
Well, I see it kind of like the one we just voted on, where it's not really a legislative agenda item, but a statement about, but you know, we could send a letter too, if that's a better way to do it. We need to get this addressed right away before vaccines start hitting the street and our school personnel are left out.
I think it's a valid point, and I don't have any objections to add it in either way.
I'm going to turn to Randy. He had a
I
comment.
think there's two things. Brad sits on the committee that will be giving recommendations to the governor around this area, and I don't know if I know Brad's on. I don't know if he's available to actually hop on and explain that process to you. And then I would rely on Mark, if it's not a part of your legislative agenda, of whether or not that can be voted on as an agenda item without having it on the agenda. So, but I'm looking to see if Brad hops on here, and he may be away from the computer. Craig, do you know enough about the process that Brad represents us on to speak about what will be recommended, how that process works?
I don't know the process where that committee sends their recommendation and who actually acts on it and what that timeline is.
Mark, I'm going to turn to you and ask, as far as if we're going to vote on this, how should we go about doing this?
Well, you're asking for an action item, and so it's not on the agenda, and it's not hasn't been presented. So according to your typical procedure, you would ask to suspend the rule that requires the board policy that requires it to be presented 1 month and voted on the next, which would require the supermajority of 7 votes in favor to add that to the agenda and take action this time.
Andy, you want to make that motion?
So moved.
Okay. Jim, were you seconding it?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask Mark a question. Would that have to happen if we just added this to the legislative agenda, which is on the agenda?
No, I don't think it would have to be added to the or that same process. I took it that you're not only just adding it to the legislative agenda, but you're trying to take some action today, and in addition to or a supplement to the legislative agenda.
Well, we have a motion and we have a second to add this to the agenda as an action item.
Kathy, I'd like to have what the actual motion is rather than just I so moved, so I know what to put.
I think the motion, well, Mark can probably state it better, but I think the motion is to add to our agenda an action item, an additional item for the legislative priorities. Is that close, Mark?
Well, I understood that you had 2 issues. One was whether you would add this to the legislative priorities. And then the second issue is whether you would take some action today as a board. And so if you're, the way I understood the discussion is right now, the first thing what you were going to do was try to take some action today. So it would be a motion to suspend the board policies related to a receive item to, in one meeting and an action item being taken today. And that would just be the motion to suspend those rules. And then the next motion would be a motion to take the action that you're asking the board to consider. That does not preclude you from adding that to the legislative agenda, because that may be something that you want to do on an ongoing basis.
So I need to make one motion to add to the receive items a new legislative priority.
Madam Chair, please correct me if I misstated the question. I think what I heard the discussion was that you were wanting to do something separate and apart from the legislative agenda. And so you wanted to take some kind of action today to reach out to the governor's office and KDHE to prioritize that, which was separate and apart from the legislative agenda. Is that what I heard?
Jim Porter?
Isn't the easiest thing to do, Mark, is just add this to the legislative agenda? And then we don't have to do anything else since the legislative agenda is already an open item?
I agree, but to me, when you're talking about the legislative agenda, it was a little more prospective as to what might happen in January. I heard some discussion that you wanted some action to be taken now to reach out to make that happen. And so that's why I saw the difference between the two.
Okay, so Ann, your motion?
I move that we add an additional item to.
Maybe the lack of clarity is coming from me. I don't believe that you need to suspend the rules to add to the legislative agenda, because that's an open-ended kind of a more free-flowing. And so just adding it to the legislative agenda wouldn't take a change of those rules. That was Board Member Porter's suggestion. I was trying to read the discussion and say, if you're wanting to do some action now in the month of December to do something separate and apart from the legislative agenda, where you're wanting to take action to notify, the governor and others that you really want to make this a priority today as those priorities are being established, that would be a separate action item.
But we could add one more item to our legislative priorities and vote on it without suspending any rules.
Correct.
Okay, well then I want to add another item to the legislative priorities. So,
Do we have to vote on that, Mark?
Well, I think you're gonna vote on that in the.
We are
I'll make a motion.
We will vote on that item, yes.
Yeah. So I could make a motion that the state board support prioritizing school workers for receipt of the COVID-19 vaccine in Kansas.
I'll second.
Okay, a second by Jim Porter. Okay, now we have some discussion items for discussion.
Just a real quick question. So is
Michelle.
Madam Chair, is my chat showing up as far as to the public on that last comment I made?
It shows up to me. I don't know that it shows up to the public. I would be glad to read it.
Okay, then appreciate that before we vote.
Okay, be glad to read it. This is from Michelle, and this is on the chat. Law enforcement, healthcare, grocery store workers all do not have any discussions to work from home. If they want to be at the top of the vaccine list, they need to be in person. I assume you're meaning the teachers.
I do.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so Randy?
Brad is on the call now, and I'd like for him to just go over the process for you before you vote of the committee he's on related to vaccines, and who the recommendation of that committee will eventually go to. So Brad, they're discussing the possibility of moving teachers up to the top of the ladder in terms of vaccinations. I know you said on that committee that we'll give recommendations. We were unclear as to whom. If you could briefly describe that process of the committee you're on.
Yeah, so thank you. We've met twice. We meet every other Tuesday. So we'll be meeting again next week. What they're looking at is a couple national studies to try to help inform. But with that being said, they will make recommendations to the governor and to health and environment to do what's they feel best for Kansas. Right now, when you look at anything from coming out of Johns Hopkins or the American Academy for Health, they're really looking at tiers. Who would be in tier 1? What type of workers? What type of people would be in tier 2? Right now, what they're having discussions, they haven't made any recommendations yet, is that the first workers or individuals to receive vaccinations, again, they haven't voted, but this is just what the discussions have been, are the frontline healthcare working in the hospitals with COVID patients. And I don't think anybody has disagreed that those probably need to be the ones that are most exposed to COVID should receive the vaccinations first. The next, also included in tier 1, are elderly and like retirement home settings where some of the largest cases have been. That doesn't mean that if I'm 87 years old and I'm living home, they're looking at locations where elderly, so it would be retirement homes and whatnot. But also included in tier 1 are educators. So that they kind of, I know you can't see my hand, they kind of stage and work their way through the first tier, but educators are up front on the list because of the just the whole economic need of having not only economic, but just the social emotional of having students back in school, as well as having working parents have their kids back in school. So educators are up higher on the list. Obviously, you can't require anyone to take it, but it's made available in that kind of a fashion. The challenge is going to be, we believe that Pfizer will be shipping some even as early as, I heard this morning that today shipments started going out. The challenge is the number of doses. To work your way through the first tier, even we've heard 24,000 doses, that comes close to, but it won't meet the needs of our healthcare professionals that are working in our hospitals closely. I've heard numbers to where it might take 20,000. So, but it will go quite a ways to get those hospital workers. What I have not heard, when's the second round of doses? When's the third? How long will it take to work our way through these tiers? But right now in the discussions, educators, school employees. So when I say educators, that includes bus drivers, cooks, nurses, key people that we need to operate facilities. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Right now, our discussions have just been on looking what national recommendations, what national trends, but there hasn't been any vote yet or any formal recommendation. But I would imagine it will align closely with what other states are looking at doing. But I'd be happy, Madam Chair, to answer any questions.
Thank you, Brad. Appreciate that clarification. It's good to hear that there's at least some conversation in there about educators. I think this motion would help. As the state board would say, we feel like our educators need to be priority as far as vaccines concerned. I also received notice while we were talking that the Kansas Pediatric Association is also has sent or is sending a letter in support of our educators getting vaccine at least earlier. So that's basically what the motion would be, correct, Ann?
Yeah, you want me to read that again?
I think Peggy, well, yes, Peggy would like it again.
Okay. The state board supports prioritizing school workers for receipt of the COVID-19 vaccine in Kansas.
Okay. All right. And we have a second. Jim Porter, I believe, seconded that. He's nodding his head. Okay. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Opposed? Abstain? Okay, I think that was a 901. Is that what you got, Peggy? Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Thank you, board members. Thank you, Ann, for bringing that up. Appreciate that. Okay, that concludes our discussion on legislative agenda, and we had an hour and a half, and we went a little over that, but that's okay. I think we have a good, solid plan that we can support going forward into the legislative session. We have taken our break. We are going to hear from School for the Deaf first and then School for the Blind. If we need to take a little break in between that, we can. But we are pleased to hear first from the School for the Deaf. So, Luann, I know I've seen you. There you are. Okay. So welcome, and we appreciate the opportunity to hear from you and the School for the Deaf to give us an update. So thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody. Lori will be voice interpreting for me for this portion. I do have a PowerPoint that I want to show. It's a lot of exciting, positive things that have been happening at the School for the Deaf during this pandemic. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen so you can see the PowerPoint. Let me know if the text is too small, and then I can sign that and Lori can voice that.
Why don't we go ahead and sign, and then Lori can voice it for our folks that are listening via the live stream. That'll probably help folks.
Interpreter just clarified that for Luann. She didn't have me up yet, and she said, okay. Are you all able to see the PowerPoint on the full screen? I want to make sure you can. Kathy, you're muted.
Okay. It's the presenter's format, isn't that it, Randy?
Right. We're not seeing it. We're seeing the presenter format, not the full screen PowerPoint format.
Okay, let me try again. Okay, is that better?
That's correct. That is better.
Okay. I'm still learning all of this on sharing screens and so forth. As you know, we're in the month of December, and a lot of things have been happening at the School for the Deaf. The majority of our students are attending in person. We have a handful, just a small number, that are continuing with remote learning, and that is by their parent choice. They opted out from in-person instruction at this time. However, our evidence shows that our students' optimal learning environment is to be in school in person. And we have had only 2 positive cases up to this point. And I think that's due to the social distancing and the masking, and I think that reflects on our low numbers and that we've been in compliance with that. The local community, the KSD community, our students and our staff, parents, everybody has just stepped up and supported the School for the Deaf. Knowing that it does look different for our students right now. Many of our events have had to be canceled, and so their typical annual events that they get to participate in have been canceled. And so we've been really paying attention to their social and emotional development and growth. All of our athletic events were canceled, and at this time, all of the winter events are canceled. And so we had to get really creative and come up with some ways to have events that we could continue with without the students losing out on those opportunities. And the community has really got involved and supported us throughout this time. The first thing I wanted to do was to talk about our outreach department and what's happening there. They continue to reach out to the districts in the state, and the numbers are actually growing there, even though our travel is less to the different districts. We're doing more through electronic means, for example, and I'll show you this video. This woman that's here, that's up on the screen now, Olivia Fellhalter, she's training to be a teacher of the deaf, and she wanted to show on this video her support for getting her deaf ed endorsement. Hello, this is Olivia Fellhalter with Kansas School for the Deaf's mentoring support program. That has inspired me to be able to continue in my education to become a teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing in northwestern Kansas. Joan, who's the outreach director, has really been very helpful to me to become who I already am. She has helped me to get out of my comfort zone and to be able to try different approaches and strategies to use with my students. I really do appreciate her and all of the help that she's been able to give me in the different areas. And when I have any questions, I can contact her, text her anytime, and she's right there to answer my questions and help me out. And so I really do appreciate the mentoring support through that program. Thank you. And so it's just very nice to know that the possible TODs that are out there are receiving continued support. I think we currently have around 11 teachers of the deaf that are in training, or people that are in training to be TODs throughout the state of Kansas. And so that's very exciting that we're continuing in that work. And then right next to her video is just a little blip from a parent who has participated in the PADS program. And this parent is from Overland, Kansas, and she appreciates that she's receiving support and help in understanding language development, and that through the PADS program, parents are able to meet and socialize and provide those tips for each other. And so our PADS program basically is a liaison between parents with deaf and hard of hearing kids to be able to gather together and support each other. This last Saturday, we actually had a Santa visit at the School for the Deaf, and that was a drive-by visit on the campus. And so we're trying to just be very creative with different events for the families and the children to be able to attend during the pandemic. This is another video in particular that's from Brandy Callahan, and she's the special education coordinator in Salina. And I'm going to share that video with you now. Interpreter is not able to hear the video. She's speaking, right? Can they, I don't know if they can hear her speaking or not. I'll go ahead and just go over what she's saying. I have the script here. She says, "Hi, my name is Brandy Callahan, and I'm the Special Education Coordinator in Salina, Kansas for the Central Kansas Co-op in Education. We partner with the Kansas School for the Deaf to meet our students' needs in many different ways. That would be to find resources in their home schools, so for the all the way to the full immersion of students in this at the School for the Deaf. We work together to be able to meet our students' needs in their least restrictive environment. Our students often take advantage of the summer programs at KSD. And these programs not only increase their skills, but also help them to make important contacts for life. KSD is willing to help our staff seek out whatever resources are necessary to be able to support our students. And that includes any environment that we may be in, and we appreciate all the support that they give to us. And so that's just a nice statement from a director, knowing that they have assurance that we can continue to provide that support regardless of where they are, where the student is in the state. And then right next to that is another little blip from an administrator at USD 305 in Salina. After a comprehensive evaluation, they were surprised to learn that their student was delayed in their expressive communication, and learned more about how deaf children need to learn, and that they were open to listening and understanding that, because many of the deaf children throughout the state struggle with having their schools know what their unique learning needs are. So we are opening more doors throughout the state and building those collaborations. The special education coordinators and the teachers of the deaf are open to our services, and we are seeing that number increase as a result of that and asking for services, which is a great positive for us. This next slide is very exciting. The Kansas City Sertoma Club did learn, recently the organization had folded. And so they had this money sitting around that they wanted to do something with. And they learned that the School for the Deaf had many needs. And so they donated $20,000 to the school. And that money specifically is going to the language assessment program and to professional development. And so they wanted to know what those funds would be used for. And we were able to tell them about the language assessment program, and that we had not received that additional funding for 2021. And so again, their desire was that that money go straight to that program for professional development for the language assessment specialist. And with that funding, we were able to contract with an outside person to be able to do the language assessment program for students who are not at KSD. At this time, we have basically 4 people who are doing assessments outside of that need to be assessed outside of KSD that are on our caseload. We needed to be able to contract with another person to continue with those assessments. Another exciting thing that's been happening at KSD, there is an a scout troop, scout troop number 87, and we've had several of our students involved in that troop. And this is an Eagle Scout project that was completed at the school by the first female, one of the first female Eagle Scouts, who herself is a CODA, a child of deaf adult. Her brother graduated from the Kansas School for the Deaf. Her dad works at the school, and her mother worked there previously. And so she had an Eagle Scout project to complete, and she selected the School for the Deaf for that. And in fact, when she was young, during her early childhood years, she was a peer model in the early childhood program. And so she wanted to come and spruce up the front of the early childhood area. There were a lot of weeds and shrubs and things that were in place. And so they added 2 red maple trees and just really beautified the area, and gave it a really nice facelift. It looks great. And so it's just helped to beautify our campus. Okay, next is the pumpkin patch. Every year, our elementary students and early childhood students go off campus out to different farms and are able to experience a pumpkin patch and picking pumpkins. And they weren't able to do that this year because of the pandemic, and we didn't want them to miss out on that opportunity. And so we had the idea of bringing the pumpkin patch to campus. And we received so many donations from the community to be able to have all of the pumpkins there. Those were donated from Hy-Vee. Instead of renting a tractor for a barrel train, somebody donated that service. And so you'll see the photo here is the front of the campus decorated for the pumpkin patch. And then on the next slide, you'll see all the different activity that was taking place that day. I actually went and participated with that with the students, and I had fun myself. I ran the maze with them, and we did pumpkin carving. It was just so much fun. You'll see the homemade maze there with the yellow flags. You had to run through that. That wasn't so easy to do, but it was fun to race the kids. I won, but it wasn't that easy. And then there's the barrel tractor there taking the kids for the ride. A deaf person's driving that. And then we had the pumpkin photo opportunity, pumpkin chess. The kids really had a fun time that day. And that's something that is a wonderful thing, that we were able to continue those traditions and keep those events going, even though we had to do them in a different way. The staff really pitched in. We had a ton of volunteers to come and help. Everybody stayed distanced and wore their mask, and it was just a wonderful time for the students. On this next slide, I'm featuring one of the different activities that the students have been participating in virtually. There are a lot of different virtual competitions that are hosted by Gallaudet University, the Rochester Institute for the Deaf in New York. And so we've had a lot of participation in those, and it didn't matter if a student was on remote learning or if they were on campus learning. Because there's no sports, there's no Parks and Rec activity opportunities, we just thought it would be fun for them to do these activities, and we have good participation. And so here's an example of our elementary kids participating in a Gallaudet event called the Trivia Cup. And we had 9 students that did join this event and competed with students from other schools for the deaf throughout the country. And so it's just an example of many of the events that our students are participating in. Another traditional event we have is called Friendsgiving. And we usually do that every year before Thanksgiving, before the kids head home. They all get together and have a homemade family style meal. And this is a student life event. And so all of the students cook their own turkey and their ham, and they make the mashed potatoes. They do the homemade apple pie and pumpkin pie. And so all the students that are in the dorm participate in this. And we had even more students involved in the cooking this year. And you'll see the photo of a student holding up a sign saying that they're thankful that the campus has stayed open and he's able to come to campus. Another student is saying, thanks to mom and dad thankful for my mom and dad. And so it was just a really sweet event that they got together. And I actually went to that also. And they were really excited to have the home cooked food. You all have already approved our strategic plan at your last month's meeting, and I appreciate that. We have been able to start work on that plan, even though, you know, that was a year behind, but we developed an at-a-glance document for people to just look at very quickly to know what our strategic plan is. It's just an opportunity to get an abbreviated version of it. And the graphic that you see here was designed by our art teacher at KSD, and that's in ASL. And so you'll see the roof and then the pillars holding up the roof are all ASL signs. And so that makes it much more visual for people who know sign language to understand what that is, that we have a strong foundation, that we have these pillars in place, and that we're focusing on improving student achievement. I do remember several meetings ago at our accreditation, the recognition that the achievement scores were low. And so that's on the list to work on as part of the strategic plan, and also to expand the statewide resources. Of course, we're going to continue our efforts there. We are committed to that. We're committed to the community. We want to be able to expand our technology. You know, after what's been happening with the pandemic in the spring, we came to the quick realization that our technology needs to keep up with what else is happening out there, so that staff and students can become more technology savvy. And so we've had a lot of professional development around that. So just a lot of exciting, good news happening. Thank you for your support. This next slide is the long-awaited project that we've been talking about for quite a number of years. This is the Murphy Auditorium at the School for the Deaf. So here you see a before and a now picture. They look pretty similar. However, when you go into the auditorium, it just looks so much better. It's not complete, but it's just wonderful. The old look has been maintained. The Historical Society came and actually looked at our seating, and they did not want us to remove that seating. They wanted to keep it there because of the history that was there. And so what we've been able to do is make it look refreshed. The construction in the Roth Auditorium continues to move forward. It's been going for 4 months now. There have been quite a few disruptions related to supplies and materials being on back order because of COVID. We did pass the first inspection and the code inspection. We passed that, and so now we're in the final phase of the new HVAC system being installed. The electrical has been upgraded. Those panels are soon to be completed. You'll see that there are old-looking pendulum lights that are hanging there, but they have LED lights in them, and then they've added some rather large ceiling fans to help the air circulate better. And then we finally have an ADA accessible wheelchair lift for the students to get up, for people to get up onto the stage. We've never had that before. The stage has not been accessible until now, and so we are appreciative of that new lift. So we're trying to keep the old look, and as of yesterday, they had started painting the walls, and so they're nearing completion and looking forward to that being done in January. We'll be having an open house and a ribbon cutting when the time is right for that. We're just very excited for that to be happening. Another area there's been a lot of renovation and construction happening on the campus. Another area here, as you see, is the student center. That's closest to our main gym. The students go over there every evening to socialize and They learn how to play these table games like pool and ping pong, and they have concessions over there and drinks. And we had very old furniture in there that was about 30 years old. The floor was about 50 years old, and so we got a facelift there. We got new flooring, new furniture, and the students are now trying to come up with what they want to name the student center. Our dorm students, which we have about 30 at this time that are living in the dorm during the week, and they go home on the weekends, they go over there on a regular basis, and they're doing that more now than they ever have because we don't have sports at this time. So they're learning how to play ping pong and pool and so forth, the different games that are over there. So that's happening in the evenings. It's a very big room, and so they're able to maintain the distancing very easily, and they're wearing their mask, of course. So it's really nice to have something that was renovated just at the right time that the students could use when everything else had to get canceled. And then this next one is my last slide. This is the secondary building. The secondary building was built in 1964. So on the before picture, that is the old picture of the second floor hallway. And it's just been painted and different things, but it still had that 1960s look. And we did receive capital improvement money for phase 1 of this renovation. And so that was the hallways and the enclosures, not the enclosures, excuse me, interpreter error, the entryways into the classrooms and the lockers and so forth. Next year will be phase 2, and that'll be actually going into the classrooms. Many of the classrooms still have window units, and so we're working on getting an HVAC system in that building to get rid of all of the different window units. And you can see pictured here is our Student Body Council president. His name is Ethan Rollefson, and he did a video from a student perspective of how they feel about the renovation. It's really a big deal for the students to have had that happen, to have it look new and exciting. So here's his video. Hi, my name is Ethan Rollefson. I'm the Student Body Council president here at KSD, and I wanted to show you our renovations. So before we had red bricks that were showing and old tile floors, and now we've got this new carpet and these white walls. We've got the new water bottle fountains, which are safer for us, and people aren't putting their hands all over the fountain. The carpet is really nice because it's got blue and green and white mixed into it, and so it matches the walls really nicely. So this is our library. And on this area, previously this was all covered in brick. And it wasn't deaf friendly at all because you couldn't see through it. And so they added glass here so that we can communicate through the glass. What this room is used for is dual placement students that are at Johnson County Community College or at the local public school. They're able to come in here for their remote learning time because they're not able to go into the public schools. So we have students here from Olathe North and Johnson County Community College, specifically their TIPS program. So here you'll see the green entryways into the classrooms that were painted, the lockers were painted. We've got the walls painted nice and the floor, and so it just all matches and it looks great. And so we want to thank the state of Kansas for investing that money into us and having it just be designed so nicely and everything looking so good. Thank you so much. And so obviously you've had the chance now to see all the different projects and the exciting things that are happening on the campus. Our students do seem to just have a small amount of impact from the pandemic because we're trying to keep things as consistent as possible. and keep traditions in place as much as possible for their social and emotional well-being. Our number one concern was the reduction of their social emotional opportunities. And when they came back on campus, we just made a lot of adjustments and changes so that we could keep those things going as safely as possible. We received many positive comments from students and staff that they're happy with the way things are going. And of course, at the beginning of the year, everybody was nervous and excited, or nervous about that. And now there's a sense of calm, and things are going very well at this time.
Well, Luann and team, thank you very much for that presentation. It's always fun to see what's going on. It's particularly nice to see some of the students and the renovations you've made, and like seeing the information about your strategic plan also. We appreciate these quarterly updates. It's good to see all the information, everything that's going on. Want to thank you and your team for the hard work, not only the work that you're continue to do at the school, but also the outreach. The outreach has certainly increased significantly the last few years, and glad to see, and how fun it is to see some additional teachers of the deaf that are in training, and some progress being made there. So really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to switch to John. I know John, here you are, John. John Harding is on, and we're going to have an update from John for the School for the Blind. So welcome, John.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Board. I will be brief, hopefully, and move right into it. I know you're bumping up against a break. I'll share my screen, and maybe, Madam Chair, you can tell me if the screen is appearing. Give me just 1 second.
Sure, you bet. Yep, you're good.
Okay.
Looks great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. School for the Blind update. I go back to my teaching days. What am I talking about? I want to give you an anticipatory set here. I'm talking really about our goals. Everything that I share with you tries to go back to the goals that we have set and you have approved. So you're going to hear about how we're moving outreach forward, how we are increasing our visibility, improving professional development, and also addressing student transitions from school to adult life. In particular, I want to highlight some of these things that I think are innovations and stretching ourselves, really challenging ourselves to reach beyond what we've always done. And then a better use of data. It's one thing for me to say we're doing great, but we want to be able to show that in numbers. So let me try to move forward. This is a slide about COVID. Of course, everybody's interested in how are we addressing COVID. The slide that I sent Peggy Hill a couple days ago is outdated, so I updated this slide. We did 2 weeks of remote instruction from August 24th to September 4th, and then we have been on-site, offering on-site classes from September 9th to present. And we've done it, I think, successfully. We've had a few parents who have chosen to elected to learn remotely. And then we're pretty flexible. If a parent says, hey, I thought I would like remote, but I want to come back, we allow them to do that. So there has been movement back and forth from remote to on-site. And we understand that parents change their minds, circumstances change, so we're small enough that we can accommodate that. Our field services have been providing outreach since August 24th to present. They've never really stopped. They follow the rules of the infant toddler network in which they're doing the service, or the local school district in which they're providing service. They're doing it in the home, they're doing it in the community, and simply following the rules of that particular organization. So we are active, open, and we intend to remain that way as long as we can. I think the other thing I want to emphasize is our commitment to increasing accessibility and rigor and inclusion around the concept of STEM. So you'll see later our new maker space that we're offering here on campus and how the kids are involved in that. We do have a mobile STEM unit, which we're really excited about pushing out to the state, and we've done that even during COVID. We're offering computer science and algebra online, and then asking people, kids, parents, TSVIs, to think about pursuing math, STEM in higher education. All those things in some way fit together. My design there, don't look at the arrows too closely. An engineer would probably say that's wrong, but the concept is that we're making progress in each area. We understand it's a process. We're not going to change the numbers dramatically overnight, but we can be an example, I think, for others. This is just a picture of our makerspace. If you remember Brighton Recreation Building, built in the 50s, it was previously just an old temporary office and a space that really wasn't utilized. We've converted it into a high-tech makerspace. And what's unique about this is that kids can think, design, and create in different areas. So the background is more of a traditional classroom. It's all internet connected, lots of computers, whiteboards for those who can see it. The second space is more of a design. What do I want to make? And what's available to me? Corel Draw software is available, 3D printers, laser engravers, heat press machines where kids can make t-shirts and mugs, things like that, just to give them a flavor that I'm in control of my learning. And it can be self-directed. That's often a new concept for our students. The third space you can't see is our old bowling alley, and we've renovated that and put in more of the industrial, messy stuff in there where kids can actually cut. If they want to saw a little bit or make a mess, that's the place to do that. So the on-campus makerspace is more than just for our kids here on campus. As we get into summer school, as we do short courses, kids from off campus can come and learn these things too. We don't intend to keep this just on our campus, but it's a place where we think innovation, design, self-directed learning can take place and be showcased. I mentioned our mobile STEM unit. You'll see a picture of it here in a bit, but one of the avenues that's opened up for us is taking this out to colleges. Professors and college deans have really embraced us coming to their campus, talking with their students about what does accessibility mean? If I'm going to be a teacher, what do I need to know? If I have a student who's blind or visually impaired in my class, what are the tools that they might be using? What do I need to think about? So we visited Pittsburgh State October 16th of this past year, and it was an inclusive design class. And so these were students who were learning web design, graphic design, and they were also elementary, secondary education teachers. So we talked about print access and electronic access and creating audio flyers. And so Professor Andrea Kent McConaughey was very gracious in setting this up, and we had a great time. Our eventual thought is we'll combine these type of events with on-site for younger students. Of course, right now it's tougher to get kids to come in a group setting, but I see this as a race where we're revving our engine, we're changing our tires, we're tuning things up, and when things free up, when the vaccines land, we'll be ready to go. We also visited Fort Hays State University November 13th and 14th, and we did combine a college visit with college education students with a Saturday event for families and students to come in. Dr. Betsy Crawford and Dr. Paul Adams out there, who's the dean of the School of Ed, welcomed us, and we thought it was successful. The van is, you see pictured in front of, I think that's the student union. I'm the one responsible for parking that way. They allowed me to do that. I've been driving this van as we go out, and other people will do it too, but it's kind of fun. It's really kind of fun to be a part of it. And of course, as you drive down the road, you get a lot of looks from people saying, I didn't know there was a school for the blind, and I had no idea they had a STEM van. So coming through Kansas City at rush hour is kind of fun. What I'm really excited about is, again, the future and partnering with Greenbush. So I want to thank Dr. Michael Kuntz, Michael McCambridge, who's director of student enrichment at Greenbush, and then Bart Swartz had reached out to me and said, let's maybe do something together. They had seen our STEM unit and said, can we partner? And we said, absolutely. So we've designed an accessible STEM program with Greenbush. They will basically advertise for us. They will talk to their schools who are part of their consortium. We will set up events where regular ed students come in. We will bring students who are blind or visually impaired. As you know, you might know, Greenbush has their own teachers of students who are visually impaired. So we can do inclusive, accessible, fun activities together, really with the intent of showing teachers what's possible. They don't need to come to the School for the Blind to have access to STEM. You can do this in your fabulous programs, your after-school programs, your CTE programs, your elementary classrooms. So while we're out there, we will be talking to teachers. We'll show them accessible science, accessible math products and devices. And we think it'll be a lot of fun once things loosen up. So again, making the preparations, putting the things in place really for the future. We'll have a full day and a half day. Again, we'll do an inclusive setting, regular ed students who are blind. And we think this will really increase the understanding, the appreciation of what this means for kids who are blind. Here's a look inside our STEM van and what's in there. There's drones, we have cubelets, chain reaction STEM kits, accessible math science kits, 3D printers, and great. We take a lot when we go and we jam it to the gills with fun stuff. We, of course, clamp it all down, and there's no room except for 2 seats in the front, so we fill it full. We have a nice ramp that we can offload it and then load it back up when we're done. I'm also proud about the computer science course that we've created. I can't, for us, it's a big deal. Why is it a big deal? Because nobody else has it. Nobody else has partnered as a School for the Blind with a large company like Microsoft Teals. This is our second year of pulling this off, and now they're ready to expand this to other schools for the blind across the country. They're teaching high-level skills using Python in a curriculum that is used with regular ed students, except that it's accessible. We have Computer Science Ed Week coming up, and so we're a part of that, and now we're going to expand it. I think one of the things we're trying to do is expand it here in Kansas. Sometimes you build a beautiful escalator and people are still using the stairs. So we're trying to push and encourage parents, teachers, even students to be looking for this and asking their counselors to sign up for it as an elective class. It's taught by volunteers from Microsoft, but our teacher, our TSVI, is there overseeing the activities. Our podcasting's been a hit. Again, self-directed learning. This is something the students have embraced and taken charge of themselves. We've done 13 episodes, had some fabulous guests. Chris Downey, who's an architect who's blind, who was on 60 Minutes a few weeks ago, has been a part of this. We've interviewed 7 blind guests. We've had 6 students who are part of this, kind of the varsity and junior varsity crews. They're writing a blog for Perkins School for the Blind, and they're learning multiple skill sets as part of this: audio engineering, social media, interviewing skills. We think these are fabulous and can lead into higher learning. Some of the successes that we've had, I want to just highlight quickly. Some of you are on hand. I want to thank Janet and Ben for coming out on September 25th for our playground celebration. Mayor Alvey was out here. This is a public-private partnership. It's an accessible, beautiful playground now. Couldn't be prouder of it. And our community was here to help us celebrate. Some of our large donors in the Chamber of Commerce was also here that day. White Cane Day was October 15th. Because of COVID, it muted it a little bit, but we still had 75 participants across the state. We did a YouTube video with students talking about what the white cane means to them. We were able to secure a proclamation from Governor Kelly, and we hope next year to take students to the Capitol. But it was still, I think, a success, and we raised awareness about the importance of the white cane and what it means to students. In terms of professional development, we had a 3rd annual Vision Symposium. This is content-specific professional development for teachers, over 100 registrants. We actually had people who were not teachers of the blind, visually impaired, want to be a part of it. Administrators, paraprofessionals. So we think it's a good idea that people are wanting to look inside and say, what's this about? So we will probably expand it and open it up. We had 40 districts represented, 3 different strands of content, job relevant, professional development. And while we did this, our campus staff were also getting job specific PD here. Our paras did something on campus. I'll mention our click and go wayfinding navigation system. Again, the only school for the blind that have an operational wayfinding system. It's a layered system. It's not simply just the high-tech piece. We have beautiful artisan maps, tactile maps for students or anybody who wants to use them. We have low vision maps, and then we have step-by-step directions, point-to-point direction across the entire campus that students can receive on their phone in Braille or audio. A tremendous tool, not just, again, for our own students, but as a teaching tool and an advocacy tool. So when they go to college, they can ask, where is the navigation system here? Where is your wayfinding system on this campus? How do I get around it? We want kids to advocate for these things, to ask for accessibility and information. This part of the presentation is going to talk about data, and this has been a desire of ours to have better data in our hands. We know we're limited ourselves in what we can collect, but through a partnership, we can improve that data. So this is looking at field services, our outreach. I think you can see on the right is just simply a picture of a phone. This is a web app. So all of our field service members have an app on their phone that makes it easy to enter this data. In previous iterations, we were using Google spreadsheets. We were using, Excel, traditional methods of collecting data, which wasn't very efficient and not part of the workflow. Now it's part of the workflow, and you can see in 1 month some of our results here. Our field service visited 42 school districts across 20 counties. We provided 50 direct services and over 20 hours of direct instruction. We were doing 47 technical assistance type services as well. That's coaching and mentoring. And we also do signature events. So each category is represented, and our field service staff can choose what they're doing really quickly. It breaks it down for us and says in 1 month, you can see the column on the right is November, previous 2 months are columns. So this is cumulative data. Not only is it month by month, but over time, we can begin to see, where are we going? What are we doing? This is effort data at present. It's not necessarily effect data yet. So that so what question is coming next. Yeah, we're very busy. We're seeing a lot of kids, but so what? What difference is it making? That's really where we want to go with this. But you can see the categories again and the numbers that are tallied each month. You can give us a quick visual. You can see what school districts we've been to, which counties we're visiting. The darker blue circles, that means we've had multiple visits, multiple events in those counties. Can also just visually see, what's happening in the Northwest. It doesn't mean we're not providing service there, but it may mean we need to focus on that more. We may need to find out, are we getting more requests from that area? How do we get more requests? So it's raising really good questions for us, good conversation. And again, by different ages, it's broken down: birth to 3, 3 to 5, K to 5, all the way up to the 12th grade. You can see that we're hitting different audiences and different ages of students. Again, can raise some good questions. If you look at this over time, we're saying, are we missing a segment of the population? Do we need to put more resources in our birth to 3, for instance? It's a lot of good questions, a lot of good data. And this is the technical assistance side. It's beyond direct services. This is workshops, professional development, training, coaching, things like that. We're not standing still. This is the parent piece. In terms of innovation, we're trying to do a better job of reaching parents. It's sometimes a tough nut to crack to get your information out there. We've done some really nice webinars around technology. One back in July, we did one in October, and we have another one lined up around transition in a few weeks. We also do content-specific webinars for parents. Our CVI, cortical visual impairment webinars are very popular. So we're trying to push the envelope in terms of parent information, parent choices, parent awareness of what's available to them. This is coming to a close. I'll leave you with some coming soons. What do we have coming up? The Braille Challenge will happen February 11th and 12th. It will be a virtual event. We're not going to try to do this live this year simply because of our numbers. We often have large numbers of students who come together. We'll do it virtually this year. We'll have a family forum, probably virtual. We'll see where things land with the vaccine and where we're at in April, but specific to parents. Lots of information, lots of content for parents to come learn about. What do I need to know? Where should my child be at this stage of his or her development? We have graduation scheduled May 13th, an outdoor option, an indoor option if we need. And then we're still planning to have a summer school, extended school year experience. Typically we do that in Hayes and Kansas City. We'll see what happens this year, but we're committed to offering that. Lastly, I did not want to neglect, I gave Peggy a copy of our strategic plan snapshot, so you should have that. I think you have a copy of our parent handbook now. We're paying attention to academics. We're investing in AimsWeb for math, reading, and SEL. So measuring students in those areas. And then have invested in Wilson Reading, a Wilson Reading program for reading instruction, which we think is accessible and fits our population. And we're going to have a barbecue for staff here. Some of you know we have pretty good barbecue here. Slaps Barbecue will be catering a nice meal for our staff on December 18th, just as a show of appreciation for all they've done. I'm really grateful, really proud of my staff. They've put themselves I think in harm's way for the benefit of kids, and I'm really proud of that and grateful. So, Madam Chair, thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, John. Appreciate you meeting with us remotely. Appreciate all the work that you're doing as we do this work during the pandemic. It has to be a little bit different, but we appreciate how you are moving forward and all of the information that you're coming through to us there. So a lot of good work going on. Pretty exciting to see all that STEM work and all that outreach you're doing. It's that's pretty neat.
Yeah, well, we're happy to bring it out. We hope you see it on the highway somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, some good work being done right there at the center, and then also out in your outreach. So really do appreciate all that. So thank you very much. And thanks to everything you and your team are doing up there up in Kansas City.
Time.
So thank you very much. Okay, for the next item, I'm actually going to turn it over to Janet, I believe.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone. We're glad to have you. I don't know how many of you were able to get back on and watch us again, but I hope you'll stay for our reception. This is kind of an exciting time and a sad time also, but I would like to welcome every one of you here. I am so disappointed that we cannot be in person. These Zooms work out quite well, but frankly, they're not meant for receptions because first of all, I do not see any punch, cookies, cake, or mints. Peggy, shame on you. And I always enjoy those at receptions. So those are one of the biggies. But secondly, I can't give people hugs, and I like to do that also. So anyway, welcome to all of you. I hope you'll stay and visit for a while. And I wanted to start off with a couple of things. Now, first of all, I must say that Steve had to leave. So he will not be with us during this, but I'm going to talk about him a little bit anyway. But before I get started and say a few things, I would like to we did not forget gifts, because that's a biggie in a retirement, is our gifts. And so, Kathy, do you happen to have the gifts you received? Because I know the board has not seen them. And I know they'd like to, and I'm confident everyone else would also.
I do. This nice box, and it says on there, to honor your service and education, and there's a bunch of little kids across the top, so you can see that. Okay, good. I thought maybe I was muted. I'm pretty bad at doing that. And then inside is this very nice pin. This is from the board, and it has my name engraved on it. When I forget who I am, all I gotta do is look at my pin and make sure I can remember who I am. So that's helpful, twofold helpful there. And then from the department is this very nice plaque. I know you can't read it, so if you'd like, I would read it to you. It says, in recognition for 8 years of service to the students of Kansas as a member of the Kansas State Board of Education, presented in appreciation to Catherine J. Bush. That makes it very official when we use the name that my father maybe called me on occasion, was Catherine. So Catherine J. Bush, member of District 8, serving 2013 to 2021, Vice Chair 2017 to 2019, and Chairman from 2019 to 2021, and then today's date. So that's a very nice plaque from the department. So thank you very much. Yes, those gifts are great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for showing them to us. I would like to state that both of the people retired, Steve and Kathy, both have served. They started serving in 2013. This is their 8th year. And during that time, we've really accomplished a lot of things. I'm so proud of the things we've accomplished, and I could have a list a mile long, but frankly, there's 3 things I picked out that I am particularly pleased and excited about. First of all, the Board of Regents. We have set up a real communication with the Board of Regents. You know, as you all know, I've been on the board the longest, and we have tried several times to talk to the Board of Regents, to work with them, because it is so important that we do, which we have certainly discovered now. And frankly, it just never worked. But since you've been on the board, this has worked. And now we are working with the Board of Regents, and I think we have a wonderful thing ahead of us. I think this is going to do nothing but provide great services and opportunities for our kids. So I'd like to thank you for that, because I think that's great. Another thing we did not do, since I've been on the board and you started, since each of you were began, was our legislative platform. You heard us discuss that today if you were watching our meeting. And, you know, we didn't have a legislative platform. We had legislative liaisons, and they went to the courthouse and to the Capitol and represented us. And they just simply did what they thought we wanted. But now we have an official legislative platform, which I think is exciting. But the most important thing we've done since you've all been on, since these past 8 years, is our new vision. That is so exciting. We have totally changed education, and I think there is no doubt in my mind that we will lead the world in the success of each student. So for those things, I'd like to thank you, but the list could certainly go on and on and on. Okay. Now, I want to say a few things about Steve. I'm going to say him anyway since he's not here, so I'm going to say him. First of all, I was going to thank him for his service. And even though Steve and I didn't always agree on issues, you know, I always considered Steve a friend. And he was always passionate about issues that he supported. And I personally believe that every single board member should be passionate and feel the same way about their issues. One of his priorities was the challenges of low socioeconomic students. He always pushed for us to do better for them. That's one issue we had in common. Another issue that he was extremely passionate about was licensure. He always explained his positions and was committed to everything he proposed. Now, his commitment always made us think deeper about these issues. And I wanted to wish him the best in the future. And I hope he can achieve all his goals. And one of them was to work as a teacher. And he said today that he had an interview. So I'm excited about that for him. Now, in between, I hope that between working on his goals, I encourage him to take some time for himself and just enjoy life. So thank you, Steve, if you watch this. Okay, now here goes Kathy. Okay, Kathy, here we go. I have so much I can say about you, but I'm just going to, I condensed it. But I thank you, first of all, for your leadership and sharing your knowledge and expertise as a former educator and administrator. You have been such an asset to our board with your ideas on how we can serve students better. Your service on the Mental Health Committee pulled everyone in the state together for our students' mental health. Your understanding of licensure and the skills teachers need to provide excellence in the classroom helped us realize there are many ways to become a licensed teacher. As a board, we were able to provide different ways to license without lowering standards. I could go on and on about areas you had a positive impact on, but we've got several others who would like to speak. On a personal note, I consider you a dear friend, and I will miss you. Please stay in touch. And at this time, I would like to introduce one of our guests. The first one I have on my list is Sherry Swans, KNEA Vice President. Sherry?
Thank you, Vice Chair Waugh. I will start with a quote by Alexander Volkov. Your journey never ends. Life has a way of changing things in incredible ways. I know that you have incredible things in your next journey. As we travel the journey of life, there are times we must say goodbye. On behalf of the educators throughout Kansas NEA would like to take a moment to publicly say thank you to Mrs. Bush and Mr. Roberts. I know Mr. Roberts had to leave, but I'll just say a couple of things. You probably realize we didn't see eye to eye on some issues, but he always took my calls and other educators' calls. He made every board member look differently at every perspective on every issue. And he was never shy about expressing his thoughts. Good luck on the next path in your journey. Mrs. Bush, thank you. Your leadership during the most trying times of each of our lives has been invaluable. You are steadfast, your global perspective, and you always look to the experts to guide the decisions. And our Kansas State Board of Education, KSDE, and every child in Kansas is successful during this pandemic due to your leadership. Thank you. Thank you for being a consistent advocate for our students and our educators, and always keeping in the forefront the work of the State Board of Education is about making every student successful. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind always be at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. The rains fall soft upon the fields. And until we meet again, thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Our next speaker will be Blake Flanders of the Kansas Board of Regents. Blake?
Well, thank you, Board Member Waugh, and on behalf of the board, it's great to be here. Again, I wish we were here in person, where Dale and Randy make us a cake and we can enjoy some punch and some mints and have a great time. But thank you for allowing me to join you virtually and really be here to honor Kathy Bush and Steve Roberts for their service. And I know Steve had to leave early, and I certainly want to single Steve out and thank him for all the work that he did. And you know, I know that the board, and specifically with your leadership, Kathy, the boards had to manage through just an incredibly difficult time. I mean, I think none of us could have anticipated what this last year would really look like. And, you know, we've really been blessed with your leadership, Kathy. And the blessing for me has been when K-12 had this disruption, we've kind of realized now how important the work is and what we missed. And so this trying time doesn't come without some positive things. And, and one of those is we don't want this to happen again. And we want to be prepared, and we know how much you value the face-to-face and personal interaction that education is. That transaction between student and teacher ultimately on the ground is so important. I want to thank you also for really driving the partnership between the Board of Regents and the State Board of Education. And partnership is so hard, as you know. We all get busy in our individual silos, and it's not natural to come together. But with your leadership, we're doing more things together now than I can ever remember. I mean, you know, we collaborated on the individual plan of study to get that moving, and I think that's wonderful for all students. I think with yours, we've really redefined what higher ed means. You know, now post-secondary education might mean career and technical education. It might mean an apprenticeship. It might mean going to a university, but it's really broader now than ever, and I think really meets the needs of students in a much better way. I appreciate all our work together with you know, the Governor's Council, the Coordinating Council, even it seems like easy work, but the hard work of kind of aligning our schedules and getting those closer so that we can better deliver service to those students, and really more broadly thinking and totally rethinking about how does the junior and senior year look in high school, and how does the freshman and sophomore year look in college, and how might those 4 years more closely come together. So Kathy, I want to say thank you. I know your work isn't done, and I know it'll be in a different role, but I know you'll be out there fighting for what's best for students, and I just appreciate your partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Blake. John Heim, Kansas Association of School Boards. John?
Well, thank you. I would like to first say that I was brought here under false pretenses. Randy and Peggy both promised me cookies, and I don't see any cookies on my desk, but I'm going to proceed just out of respect for Kathy and Steve. I'll start with Steve like everybody else did. I think Janet summed it up very well and probably said it better than I can, but Steve, we always knew where Steve stood. And he always took the time to explain his position. There was never any question about where he was. I think maybe he had an issue with teacher certification. I'm not sure. I never really heard him talk much about that, but I think that was a problem, an issue that he had. The other thing about Steve is you always knew that he was there to support underprivileged children, and that's a critical piece for board members to remember, is to be an advocate for children who don't have an advocate. And I think this whole board does a good job of doing that. Kathy, since you're still here, and this is going to make you uncomfortable, but I'm going to say some publicly nice things about you. First of all, I did not realize that your dad was the president of the Wichita School Board. So you were brought up the right way. That is so cool that you were able to bring his gavel. For school board members, and I'm going to attempt to speak for school board members right now, it's so good to have a chairperson at the state level who epitomizes good boardsmanship. And I want to compliment the whole board, but specifically under Kathy's leadership. You guys do a great job of showing what good boardsmanship's all about. And Kathy, when you decided you wanted to run for president, you apparently knew this pandemic was coming. So you wanted to be the one to lead us through this, but I just can't imagine somebody doing that with more grace, with a more positive attitude, and with more strength of character and conviction. You're such a great listener. You're a servant leader. You've served kids your whole life, and it's been great getting to know you. I got to serve on the mental health committee with you, and to watch you work has been a fantastic experience for me, and I've learned a lot from you. And so I wish you well, and I hope you're not done with us as educators. I think we probably still have some more work we could find for you. Congratulations.
Thank you, John. Okay, G.A. Bowie of USA Kansas. G.A.?
Well, thank you, Madam Vice Chair. First of all, I want to say I'm a little bit jealous of Dr. Heim. He was at least promised cookies. I wasn't even promised cookies. So,
you have to ask.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and speak on behalf of USA Kansas and our Kansas School Superintendents Association. It's been a pleasure to watch the board over my last 6 years, but watch Kathy and Steve work over the last 6 years. I think that any part of any good board is, it's always great when you have boards that agree. And sometimes you don't get down to the fine details when boards disagree. And I think, with Mr. Roberts on the board and Steve did a wonderful job of speaking on behalf of Kansans that have questions and asking those difficult questions and maybe disagreeing from time to time. And I think that's really important for boards of any type to have those individuals on the board. And Steve definitely did a great job of representing that part of Kansas and those underprivileged folks of Kansas and answering some of those questions that maybe some people just were afraid to ask. And Steve was always brave enough to stand in front of the board and ask those difficult questions. So on behalf of USA Kansas, Mr. Roberts, thank you for your leadership and your time to Kansas kids and to our Kansas educators. Madam Chair, it's been a great opportunity to work with you. Coming from the ranks of administrators, we always knew where you stood, but at the same time, you challenged us to get better. You challenged education as a whole in Kansas, and I think you're leaving a legacy for this State Board of Education to continue to push the envelope. I think there are so many great opportunities that we have here in Kansas, but it took leaders like you to step up to the board and say, we can do more. We expect more from our kids. We expect more from our educators, but more importantly, we expect more from our administrators. And you've done that. You've been brave enough to come and have those hard conversations with us in person. You've asked the difficult questions to us, but you've made us better along the way. So for that, we appreciate your service to Kansas and your willingness to listen, be there, be present, and most of all, for caring. And thank you for your service.
Thank you, GA. And now we have a surprise guest that I am so excited that we have here today. He's one of the giants in Kansas education, and we haven't seen him for a while. So, and I believe most people simply know him by one name, but I will introduce him. Welcome home, Dale Dennis.
Dale, you're muted.
I miss you guys. I really did. I've been at a board meeting, but nobody showed up. I thought maybe because I was there, you didn't come. But anyway, I sure do miss you. And, this is kind of interesting. The community service that Steve and Kathy's provided is extremely important. Back to what a good friend told me one time, you evaluate somebody by what took place during their tenure. And folks, a democracy cannot exist without community service. Think about that a little bit. All the community services, the different folks involved, and education, in my opinion, is number one. But I want you to think just a little bit about what happened. And Steve, and it's been mentioned 2 or 3 times, Steve and Kathy always had the disadvantage, the at-risk kids. And a lot of people don't realize this, but they did. About 175,000 kids in our state qualify for at-risk. It's a little bit more than that. Think about that. And the impact that you had during your tenure is one evaluation tool, I think, of your success. For example, we're spending now over $400 million a year on at-risk kids to try to help them. And Kathy, Steve's not there, but the impact of that will be felt for many years to come. Many years to come. In state aid to schools, which has a major impact on recruiting teachers, we've increased during this 8 years over $1.5 billion. Think about that. There ain't very many people can say that during an 8-year period. That's pretty big deal. You develop the navigation change guide and learning document. That's phenomenal what happened on that document. That was put together in a very short period of time and became a role model for the country. Unbelievable. Another one I wanted to mention is that it's easy overlooked, is what's happened during your tenure, is in the food service nutrition area. 8 years ago, about what we were concentrating on was school lunch and breakfast, and not much breakfast. Now the programs now have been expanded. There's like 10 or 12 different programs. And during the pandemic, we even take meals to kids or you take it to school and they go to school and pick it up. And what we've done there to help feed poor kids has just been tremendous during this period of time. Another little item or two I wanted to mention, we've reinstituted the funding for professional development and teacher mentoring. That's extremely important. Research will show that. Big time. Teacher mentoring, we did a research on that. That makes quite a difference on retaining good teachers. We also expanded the school bus safety unit. We don't think about school bus safety until we have an accident. But our record there has been just phenomenal. We've established a school safety and secure schools unit. That just happened about 3 years ago. And another one I think is really important. We've learned how to access, to study, review the state assessment program. And we use it as a tool for improvement. In the past, I'm not sure, 8-10 years ago, we used it as a tool for improvement as we should have. I think now that's been a big improvement. And that's happened during the last 8 years, I think. So I hope I get to see you in person. One of these days we get back together, but I sure do miss you. And thank you, Steve and Kathy, for your service. Truly mean this. Your service will be felt by kids for many years to come. You've touched 500,000 kids' lives, and the touch of that will be affect a lot of kids in the future. Thank you for letting me visit.
Thank you, Dale, and we will hold you to that coming back to see us because we want you back. Now, for the closing remarks, we're going to have our great commissioner, Dr. Randy Watson, who will have to explain where the cookies are. Randy?
Well, Dr. Heim knows I ate them, so they were available. I sucked those down, but appreciate everyone offering. I want to first of all thank Sherry and Blake, John, GA, Dale for your comments and for being here today. We all wish we could be in person, but unfortunately we're not. I'm going to keep my remarks extremely short. I just want to say, it's been said, Steve and I spent some extended time together, one in a bowling afternoon where neither one of us are going to go on the tour, as I think we did break 100 at least in both our games. And then I needed to go grab some things after a board meeting one night, and he Ubered me to Abilene and back, where we got a chance. And it's been said, Steve cared deeply about poverty kids, and Janet, you know this. It was outside even of his area, but he cared deeply about the kids in KCK, close to his area. And we talked a lot about poverty and how to overcome that. So I just want to thank him, not for his great bowling game, but for his commitment to kids who are poor, kids of color, and just thank him for that. Now, most people listening today would have no idea of the countless hours that Kathy Bush has to put up with the commissioner. Now, Janet will, because she's usually with us on these conversations. So I can just tell you, I can't tell you how many times I've driven from Topeka to McPherson, or Topeka to Chanute, or Topeka to Liberal, and the entire way I've been talking to Kathy Bush about issues related to the board and how we're going to go about it. I interrupt her walks frequently. I interrupt her social life frequently, her trips to Colorado to see her family frequently. And she's always been so gracious to answer and to problem solve with me. So Kathy, I think everyone has said it. Your legacy from the board will be felt for generations. And I think what everyone on this board understands, and maybe people not on this board, your leadership, either as a member or as a vice chair and chair, have been just phenomenal. And I appreciate everything that you've given and Steve's given to the board. And our communications department put together a very short video that I'll end with that kind of gets some snapshots of all of you and Steve in action. And I'd like to share that with you. Make some changes here. And share and Yes, thank you. And yeah, excuse me, let me get out of this. So again, thank you. And as we say oftentimes, I hope that you and Steve, as Steve will look back at this, enjoyed, Kathy, that you got to see a lot of your friends from this board and previous boards and a lot of the work that you've done. But Siri, as you know, some of you know, I have Siri in an Australian voice, so she knows Kathy Bush very well, and she will call you frequently, I think, on her own. So don't get used to this retirement too easy. Thank you, Kathy, and appreciate your leadership, and thank you, Steve, for everything.
Kathy, did you want to say something?
Oh, sure. I'd take an opportunity to say a few things. First of all, thanks to, gosh, everybody who spoke today, Sherry and Blake and GA and John and everybody who had a few. Dale, what a treat it is to see you, even if it's online. That's so nice to see you. Really appreciate everybody's kind comments, and the video was wonderful. You know, I think back when I retired from the Wichita Public Schools and was encouraged to run for the state board. And I have had a friend who's described me as a reluctant politician, which is probably pretty accurate. I really don't consider myself much of a politician, but I would have to say I have just thoroughly enjoyed my time on the state board. I feel like we've gotten a lot of really good work done, and I think back over some of the times that we've spent together, and I think back, starting back in about 2015, I was on before that, but starting back in about 2015 when we started our road shows, when we went all over Kansas and, you know, heard from people about, you know, what they wanted in our schools. And then the board all came back together and began to really rework our mission statement and our vision. And, you know, we added civic engagement to the mission statement, and gosh, how much that's meant, and the importance of getting kids involved civically and everything there. And we established our 5 goal areas. I kind of heard Randy say something the other day, you know, of our 5 goal areas, you know, something that everybody's always familiar with is high school graduation rate, and continues to be a metric that we use to look at success, but it's not the only one. And, you know, who knew 5 years ago that kindergarten readiness and social emotional growth would be something that we talk about all the time. We talk about, you know, things that we're improving on, you know, that kindergarten readiness and how we need to help our students and our staff with social emotional. But then, you know, the post-secondary success is a factor that, you know, people are just beginning to understand that metric. And I think that's going to have such an impact on folks. But then our individual plans of study, you know, that maybe hasn't gotten as much lift as kindergarten readiness and social emotional growth, but I think it's going to. I think it's ready to take off and have that big impact on folks. And then, my gosh, Randy talked about all the phone calls we've had since this pandemic hit. You know, there were days he and Janet and I, we didn't even talk once a day. We talked twice a day, and sometimes more than that. So, wow, what has gone on during this pandemic. And, you know, I think to our schools, and I think the change that that's had. And, you know, we took those 2 huge documents that we provided guidance to our schools, and we took standards and we really tried to put them into competencies. And, you know, I think about how that will probably live on past this pandemic, and also how we're going to change how we use technology with how we do our schools. So, you know, I just, it has been an interesting last 9 months, and it's going to continue a little bit. But, you know, as the board moves forward and the work continues, I know my colleagues, I speak to my colleagues, and gotten to know all of you very well, and appreciate being able to have the opportunity to work with you as we move forward. And the work that I know you will continue to do. These 5 goal areas are important. They'll continue to be important. So I thank you for allowing me to work with you as we impact Kansas kids and Kansas schools and Kansas teachers. And I know that work will continue to go into the future. So thank you for the opportunity of allowing me to serve with you, and to the members of District 8 that I have represented, thank you. One of the things when you get on the board, you learn pretty quickly. You may be elected from your one district, but you serve the students of Kansas. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. And I guess we have one thing left to do. And would you like the honors of using your gavel for one last time?
Yeah, I will use this gavel again, yes, for one last time. So thank you, and the meeting is adjourned.